Cause I will conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Yes, I will conquer. Conquer them. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer. Conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You're everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of flesh. Send down your warriors with the hello. They carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give. Father, I know this time is coming. I can see the high tide raise. Without you there is no other. Could it be that we decide? No weapon that form against us shall not prevail. No man that rise against us, that war they shall never win. Because I will conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Yes, I will conquer. Conquer them. Come on, let's conquer. Oh, I will conquer. Rise up and conquer. Conquer them. I am a man. I am a champion. I am a warrior. So who are you to tell me that I cannot make? Who are you to tell me that I am not the greatest thing that God ever created?
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the various radio stations, whether it's 97.5 CitysoundFM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 RealFM Radio, 92.9 Sister Radio Broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on the live video stream, whether it's on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, wherever you are joining us from. A very special good morning to you. It is a beautiful Thursday morning in the Spice Isle of Grenada, and aren't we happy to be alive and well this morning? Well, for those of us who are well. For those of us who aren't, we hope that you have a speedy recovery and get back to enjoying life as you know it. Yesterday, it's been 2 days since we've been sitting here with you. We had the post-cabinet briefing on Tuesday, and yesterday there was a sitting of the House of Representatives. All right. Now, my co-host is somewhere on the compound there, but he's not in here with me as yet. So hopefully he'll be joining us soon as we continue our conversations, as we speak to the people, as we hear from the people, because it's important for us to hear from you, to hear what you are thinking, to hear where your mind is at in some instances. Yesterday there was a very troubling situation for us here as a region, something that we aren't very accustomed to. And we hope we never have to be accustomed to. Oh, there he is. I was just telling the people that, you're somewhere, you're somewhere on the compound. I just don't know exactly where. Yeah. Telephone meeting. A telephone meeting right before you're supposed to start. I just don't understand you.
Sometimes I just can't get away from it. Good morning to everyone listening. I apologize. It's just that sometimes the calls, the information people are looking for, a quick word that ends up being more than
a quick word,
and you try to cut as best as you could without making anyone believe, well, I ain't want to talk to you, so you have to listen a bit, you have to advise a bit, and then you try to cut it out. But be that as it may, I'm happy to be here. It's Thursday. Yes, today's Thursday.
You telling me now? I'm rubbing off on you, man.
No, you doesn't rub on me. That's not true.
I said rub off.
Well, I have nothing written that you must rub off. You're a rubber. You're a pencil. not all pencils have rubber, and not all rubbers have pencil.
Yeah,
that's true. There's a gentleman, having said that, just mentioned the word pencil, who he's passed now, he's deceased. He was one among the handful of people that was elected from Grenada, I think, during World War II. The British did take some people from the colonies.
Okay.
I learned that many of them never actually ended up on the battlefield.
Oh.
So, and was never involved actually in combat. But they were listed and was part of what they call the regiment, I think. I think it was the regiment they referred to it. So he was one of those people who went to London, England, was part of the regiment. They weren't frontline, but they were like reserve soldiers, as far as I understand it. Never did I search into the history to get it much clearer. I can't remember what his proper name was, but we all referred to him as Paliwali. That's how everybody called him. So people from that side of the island, St. Andrews North, is the Moya. He actually was living in the Moya area there. So Paliwali did something called the Earth and Its People. I have one I bought from him. He would carve out from a nice piece of wood a map of Grenada. He has the Grenada map. And he had 4 pencils that he will stick onto the face of that piece of wood. So it's a carving of Grenada map, and it's marked on top, the Earth and Its People. Right? So one of the pencils, I don't remember the order in which they came, but I can tell you what all of them look like. One of the pencils was sharpened at both ends. Both ends of the pencil were sharpened. Another one had a rubber at both ends. He had rubber stuck to both ends. The third one was blunt. Just like you buy it, there are some pencils that you buy them being sharpened and others are not.
Right.
So just like you bought it, it was not sharpened. It had the rubber to one end and the other end was blunt. And the fourth one was like a regular pencil that was sharpened. So you had one sharpened at both ends, one with rubber at both ends, one with rubber at an end but not sharpened, it didn't have a point, and one with a point and a rubber. And then came the explanation for the pencils. So the Earth and Its People, what does that have to do with these pencils? And friends, you would get the gist of the story. I know it sounds a little boring, but just listen and you would understand. The one that was sharpened, the pencil that was sharpened on both ends, represents people who feel that they will never make a mistake in life. They are above everything. They can do everything right. So they have no use for a rubber. Hence the reason they are sharpened at both ends. They can do. That is what that first pencil represents. People who feel that everything they do is correct, they make no mistakes.
Right.
The one that had a rubber at both ends represented the people in the world that was convinced that everything they do is a mistake. So they had to rub off all the time. That's why they had a rubber at both ends. The one that had a rubber but not a point represented people who will do nothing. They're always afraid that what they do may be the wrong thing, so they do nothing. That's why they don't have a point. They can write, so they don't have to rub off. They just stay as they are, how they were made. That's what this one represented. And the one that had the rubber and the point represented the average man in the world who will act. That's what the point means. Knows that he will make mistake, but is courageous enough to do what he has to do.
Right.
The Earth and Its People. That's what Paliwali did. Made a lot of sense to me. So it looked very simple and ordinary, but it's profound with the meaning that he had for it. So that was Paliwali. And I just remember that as you mentioned rubbing off. You don't rub off on me. I am like the pencil with the point. and the robber. I do what I have to do, quite cognizant that I may make mistakes at times. I am not absolutely perfect, so I'm not sharpened at both ends. And neither do I have a robber at each end, because I'm not afraid to endeavor, to endure, to dare to do. So I don't have robbers at both ends.
And you can't smudge.
No, so I'm like the average man.
All right, Mr. Bola, we're jumping right into the conversation this morning because there are two very important topics that we're going to discuss this morning. One being that of vaccination, and the other, of course, being that of the sex offenders registry. I know we started on the conversation and there was a lot of opinions being gathered as to what we think should happen and so on. Now, after our conversation, a few things happened. There was a gentleman who was arrested for sexually assaulting his 6-year-old stepdaughter.
That was that the incident in Mount Horn?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
And I mean, that is the only one that we know of in the public. These things seem to be happening at a very alarming rate recently, and not just here in the region, but I think it's really an international issue. It's troubling. It is disturbing. It is vexing. It is a lot of things. It procures a lot of emotions from me personally, and I think from a lot of people as well. Having to think about, already struggling as a parent and not being sure who you can trust with your children, And as we've said here before, many of the offenders are people who are close to their victims, people who are close to the family members of fathers, brothers, uncles, stepfathers, close friends. I mean, it is saddening. It is frightening when we think about these things. Now, I read yesterday that today the Ministry of Social Services is inviting the media to a consultation on the sex offenders registry bill, right? So that is going to happen today at 2:00. So it's at Montrouge. So it will be carried live, hopefully, if the media indulges. And that consultation will give participants an opportunity to discuss and provide feedback on the bill. And I think that is a very important session for us to look at as a people, because it's going to give us an idea of where the policymakers' minds are at as it relates to this bill, what it means for us, what it means for the offenders, what it means for the victims. It gives us a clearer idea of what is going to happen, or what is being thought of. But it is an important thing. But I really honestly believe, Mr. Bola, we have to reach so much further than just to register these offenders.
Would that be the only consultation? Because I did hear of some, was it from a GIS news briefing or somewhere, that people were invited to be part of a consultation. Again, I think the Trade Center was the venue, and it was in relation to the sex
offenders registry.
Yeah.
Well, maybe it's probably the same thing.
I don't know if it's the same thing, because this one is saying media person.
No, they're inviting the media to be a part of it.
Oh, they're inviting the media to be.
Yeah.
So that okay. I just got it
from the outside as well.
Right.
Who the panel will be, that has not been.
Sorry, so it's my bad. I got the impression from
that it was
the way
just
you
for
read
the media. No.
I thought it was just for media personnel today, and maybe at another time or another occasion. But if it is the consultation, I want to urge people to go out and have your say. Be part of the discussion. You may have your views, and your view doesn't have to be the view of everyone else. or accepted by everyone else. It's the way you see it. Like Ms. Duncan would want chemical castration. I don't share that view, but that is her view. And it is from these kind of consultations and we're looking and listening to what each other's point of view may be. Eventually, the policymakers are then able to come up with a policy, come up with regulations, be able to amend the bills and put within it something that more or less represent a more nationalistic view.
Yeah.
It's not narrowed down to just how the writer of the bill feels or the legal mind behind the bill.
Right.
The fact that the public was there to express their feeling, to give examples, and nothing is wrong with that, really. Huh? Nothing is wrong with your suggestion. It may not be agreed to by everyone in there. Likewise, you may not agree to what some other person may say. But those who are tasked with the responsibility for formulating the bill and for preparing policies will now have a much larger basket with choices that they can make. There'll be much more that they can mix and match, and it would be a better representation of what a greater cross-section of the population thinks and feels. Yes, it will not be the narrow-minded, myopic view of just a few people.
Yeah.
So we have an opportunity as people. We talk about it all the time. We think of it as one of the greatest vexing issues in our country. One of the issues that we believe much stiffer penalty, and that's what some of us believe. It may also mean the issue of rehabilitation for some people. Whatever those issues are, whatever your feelings are, it is necessary, I believe, to get out there and let it be heard.
Yeah.
You know, let your word be. You know, I want to, in my head, I'm trying to suggest, because that's an issue that many years ago, in a discussion, it's really was not an organized discussion. It was just with some guys on the block and the issue of sexual molestation, and you know the offenders came up, and men was just airing their views at the time.
Right.
And there was a gentleman who said something. I'm still wondering. It's been on my mind for a while, whether it is worth the while saying it on radio, but maybe it can spark some discussions.
Right.
Yes. We live in a Christian society, and so most of us, or the majority of us who follow Christianity or consider ourselves to be within the religious realm of the population,
right,
have certain standards, certain things that we consider to be moral, others may be immoral, and so. And the discussions went that way, and I'm trying to pick my words properly to make sure that what I say and the way I say it does not connote to people a wrong idea.
Right.
Because remember, we were on the block.
Right.
And what I say is not exactly the way in which the gentleman said it. However, he felt that maybe if there was an organized way, or there was I don't want to say legalized, but I think, let me just ask you that question. There are in some jurisdiction people who are registered and are legal in the duties they perform as what they call sex workers.
Right.
Right? So he was leaning towards that, not saying it in that way because I guess he didn't never understood or probably didn't even know that there are people who can register that. But he felt that if the authorities were to allow or to have established houses, we know what we refer to them as, but where these registered, legalized sex workers can operate from, it may shift the urge that some of these offenders have to go after vulnerable young children, and they may go spend a little money. And don't jump on it yet, Mr. Duncan. Hold on. And that's why I was toying in my mind whether or not. I'm just giving you a view, or I'm giving the public a view. And I want people to weigh in. I hope people will call in. And don't crucify the messenger.
Listen to the message.
Listen to the message, because the message, and I am not saying that I particularly agree with him, but it was the way in which an ordinary, what we would refer to in Grenada as a guy on the block, a street guy, because we were there and the issue came up and we were discussing, and he felt, you know what, if these men know that, look, for a reasonable, a small sum or something that they can afford, they can get a release, they can do, maybe that may shift. And that's his view, while we know, and we've heard scientifically proven, that some people, it's a mental case for them. They seem to have a certain trait in them that would lead them to do that, even if did I put myself in trouble? I find like the phone lines are blinking, like somebody's ready.
You didn't put yourself in trouble. Keep going.
Ready to jump at me. I mean, it was just a feeling, because different people, and I said it from the standpoint that I want to encourage people to go to the consultation. Your suggestion and what you're thinking as a solution may be very controversial. Maybe anti what many people think, but it may help to open up the eyes and ears of the policymakers to think outside of the box, to think differently to how they're thinking. And maybe your suggestion may never make it to the table. It may never get discussed. I don't know.
But it may form part of a policy.
Of a policy, I'm just saying, bring it out.
Well, I'm laughing here because, all right. So, Mr. Bola, that's quite an interesting suggestion by the gentleman. And sometimes the block is usually the place to go when you want to get abstract opinion.
And that was not nowhere. That was not a conversation that happened because the sex offenders bill came up and, we discussed it. That's a thing that was done many years ago. We had that discussion. And I had the thought, it rolled through my mind many times, but I've never felt the urge to bring it out or to share it or to have public discourse on it. It just stayed with me. And in all honesty, up until now, I cannot tell you that I agree or disagree with the gentleman. It's a very, abstract thought. I mean, Grenada is really kind of very small for this kind of activity. To be legalized, but in my opinion, I do not think that this would help the situation, and I'll tell you why I say that. These men that are harassing these young children, sexually molesting these young children, it cannot be for lack of activity. I cannot see it. It cannot be for lack of what activity? It's sexual activity.
I cannot see.
So use the word so people will know what you're talking about.
I cannot see, Mr. Bola, that it's for lack of sexual activity. I remember maybe 2-3 years ago. The time goes so quickly that sometimes it seems like it's been a shorter time than it actually is. There was an incident with a young man, with a woman and her son, and her boyfriend, where he made the young child perform oral sexual activity on him, and stated that this was because he'd asked and he didn't get. That's what
the washing machine wasn't working.
That's what he said. He said he asked and he didn't get, so he resorted to that. That is a different kind of sick human being, Mr. Bola. For you to look at a young child, and we're not.
And was a little boy.
And was a little boy.
Okay.
It's not a girl. It's not a 12, 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old girl coming into herself looking, I'm lovely with the curves, and it's not that. We're speaking about little children, 8-year-olds, 6-year-olds, sometimes, and it has happened here in Grenada, children who are months old, who cannot bring you any sort of sexual pleasure or desire or these kinds of things. So you have to be on a very different, sick kind of level, Mr. Bola, for that to happen. And I don't think that any legalization of any sex trafficking or any sex work or of any kind is going to resolve an issue like that.
Well, at least not those who are maniacs, who are out of this world.
I don't think it's going to resolve it at all.
At different levels. So he was suggesting that as one of the solution. Okay, would you consider? And I hear your point, which is very important and truthful, because the records can show. And the records are there to show. It's factual that things like that has happened and continues to happen.
Right.
But would you put a guy who now commits rape, which is another form,
right,
of a more mature, as you say, someone who is attractive, has the looks, you get a feel as a man, you see that person passing your way or whatever. I don't think that those two situations fit into the same category.
No, I would not categorize them
as the same.
They are both equally wrong.
Of course, yes. I'm not talking now about the right or wrongness of the action.
No, but I wouldn't categorize them.
Right, because it must be two different mindsets.
Minds, absolutely.
Right. So maybe in his mind, and I can't speak for the gentleman, but maybe in his mind,
he was thinking about
more of that than the more abstract. I mean, what you just described is almost like something unbelievable. It's like a movie kind of thing, but it is a reality.
And it is what is most prevalent here in Grenada.
It is a reality. Helpless children who I am lost for words as to how to describe it.
It is. And it just means because you can't, as a parent, as an individual, you cannot say, I know that this thing is happening, but it won't happen to my child. It just means that as a parent, as a mother, you have to be ever more cognizant of the possibility of this thing happening. I mean, it's not something that as parents you want to put in the forefront of your mind, that you want to be thinking on or pondering on or anything like that. But it's a reality. It is something that is plaguing our society. So therefore, it is something that you must put in your forefront, because we do not know who these aggressors will be. We don't know who we are bringing into our children's lives. We do not know who is going to be that person that is going to cause this kind of grief and harm to your child. So as a parent, it is important that we are always thinking of it with every decision that we make for our children. You want to make sure that you are putting your child in a position where they are educated. And I say educated because we can no longer say, I'm putting my child in the arms of someone safe. That is no longer a conversation that we can say we are having. What we need to start doing is start having these kind of sexual education conversations with our children at an even younger age than we think is necessary. Gone are the days when we wait for them to get to
reach puberty.
School. To reach puberty. But even before puberty, we wait for them to get to primary school and wait for them to get in grade 2, where we talk about the no square, and we talk about good touch, bad touch, and these kind of things. Gone are those days, Mr. Bola. We need to start having these conversations. If you as a parent are at an early age, if you as a parent are unable, or you feel like you are incapable of having that conversation, you don't know how to bring it across. You don't know how to tell your child, listen, this is a behavior that is unacceptable. Because this individual, this gentleman, and this 6-year-old had over 20 encounters. And I mean, for a child to go through that more than even once is too much without the parents' knowledge. Because, I mean, that's what's alleged at the time, that there was no knowledge by the parent. So I am saying that at a very early age, Mr. Bola, we need to start having these conversations where we tell our children, you need to be careful of X, Y, Z, Q, R, S, and
but
give them...
you call it no way, no go square, no.
Well, that is how we used to refer to it.
Okay.
So we need to now start having open conversations. There are no secrets between children and adults. We need to start there. We need to start letting...
Children and adults, or children and their parents?
Well, children and their parents. Children and adults in general. Because in most cases you will hear some of them say, well, this is a secret, secret between the two of us.
No. I get it now.
Right. There are no secrets between children and adults.
There should be no secret.
There should be. Children shouldn't be holding no secret for no adult. So therefore that should be wrong. From the time somebody tell you, keep that a secret, that should be a secret between the two of us, it should be a red flag. Yes, we need to start teaching our children about red flags. And we need to start referring to things in the way that they should be referred to. Not the nicknames. Teach them in the way that they're supposed to be taught.
So which part of the body you call no-go square?
The vagina.
Okay, well, I just getting it.
Right.
You had me lost for a while.
No, we talk about it in these. So, because when we bring these things to little children, I think we feel like we need to condense it, to evaporate it a little bit. Water it down so that they.
But evaporation is a movement of water off. Why are you talking about evaporation and say water it down?
Well. In my mind, I'm thinking milk.
Lord have mercy on us here today.
In my mind, I'm thinking milk.
You're confusing me.
Leave me alone. We need to water it down, Mr. Bola. We feel like we needed to water it down. So we feel like when we're speaking about to children, we would say to them, okay, well, this is a good touch, bad touch area, and these kind of things. I think those days are gone. I think it is time now for us to start having these real conversations with these children because they are having real experiences.
Real problems too. Real problems they are having.
It's very sad. Someone on the live is saying, I think that it is premeditated. It does not just happen overnight. And they're saying again, and sometimes the children are telling the parents, but the parents don't believe what they are saying, and saying they're lying. And that has happened in many instances as well.
You made some points before, and based on what that person I've just sent in, I am suggesting that one, the conversation must be held with children, but there are many parents who themselves need to be educated.
Yes.
Because as you have alleged, based on the way in which it was described to them and the conversations that they had, and some of them never had a conversation with their parents themselves, it is difficult or probably almost impossible for them now to bring themselves to the place where they can have that frank and open conversation with their children. So there are many parents that need that assistance. And maybe it should, since they have been brought into adulthood and are now having children, maybe it is something that Ministry of Health, Ministry of Social Development, Ministry of Education can combine together and do a little booklet so that you in pregnancy, when they are going to have to the what they call it prenatal clinics,
right,
a lot of these conversations can be held with the parents in collaboration with the nurses who would attend to them. Yes, because you have to find an avenue where you can reach them and give them that information. That's one. But I think parenting in general, it is something that must be taken into consideration, because one of the things that you said earlier on, in parents making decisions for and about their children, they must always be cognizant of these possibilities. And you're so correct about that. Because you can't say it's happening to Jennifer child or Jack and Jenny child, it won't happen to mine. And then what immediately flashed in my mind is where you allow your children to go.
Yes.
Whom do they go with? Who would be the company, the companion? Would it be children of the similar age group? The adult that is going to be supervising. So whether it's a school activity, a church activity, a village group activity, the adult or adults that will be in charge. What do you know about them, the character, the background? Because a lot of times, the church is going on a camp, for example. Yes? And it is okay. It's brother so-and-so. Let me don't call a name because there might be somebody with that name. And they think it is brother so-and-so and sister whatever. So it's cool. What do you know about brother whoever and sister whatever? What do you know about the sexual orientation?
Yes.
What if sister so-and-so is attracted to the female sex?
Right.
Huh?
Or attracted to female sex of a younger age.
Of a younger age.
Right.
So we need to find out more when we're making decisions for our children. But one that is very glaring and very present in our society today is the way in which we dress or allow our children to dress.
Yeah.
So you see young girls, 11, 12, probably, as we say, just coming into puberty.
Yeah.
You look at the kind of clothing that they wear. A lot of it very revealing, very temptress, if there's a word like that. I hope it's correct to say that. No. Well, you don't be the word checker. But
tempting. It's tempting.
Yes. Tempting. You know? I mean, so we really have, as a society, to evaluate much more and not just try to fix the problem after it happens.
Yes.
What do we do to prevent it?
And that is why when we had the conversation last week about the measures that can be taken to ensure that these offenders do not become repeat offenders, or to ensure that we deter other persons from becoming offenders. I mean, you have to look at the most drastic measure, yes, but also you have to, in your mind, you have to think that the next person around the block could be an offender. As a parent, I mean, you don't want to label people. You don't want to look at people in that kind of light. But because of the severity of the situation, because of the sensitivity of the matter, you don't want to put too much trust when it comes to your children into any one human being, you know, because we are subject to error.
Yeah.
We are not perfect. No individual is perfect. And even as a parent, if you believe that you are doing a wonderful job, and you may be doing a great job as a parent, it doesn't mean that because your child has been subjected to some form of sexual abuse, that you have done something wrong as a parent. Sometimes it's not your fault. And that is why we as parents have to be cognizant of the fact that it is not because you're doing a wonderful job as a parent that your child has been spared of this, or it's not because you have done a terrible job as a parent that your child is subjected to that. It's just a matter of you always being cognizant of the fact that that is a reality. That is a possibility, a very real possibility. It could be somebody that is closest to you, whereas it could be somebody that you have never met in your life. But the fact remains, our children need to be educated of what these situations look like, what they can present themselves as, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable at any given age, so that they are aware, so that even if there is one offense, a 6-year-old child does not have to be subjected to 20 plus incidents such as this before they feel comfortable enough. And imagine that it wasn't a matter where the child felt comfortable to go and tell the parent, you know. It was some suspicion by some family member that led to that discovery. So that child could have, if there was no suspicion, continued for maybe years undergoing this kind of thing, and nobody knows. So it is important for us to make our children feel comfortable to come to us and say to us, Mommy, Daddy, this has been happening to me. Because they know.
This is what has happened. Because when you say this been happening, means it would have repeated itself.
Right.
This is what has happened, or this is what was said.
Or was said. Oh, yes.
Very early.
Oh, yes.
When the first approach is being made, our children must be taught to be confident, and we should have that kind of relationship with them.
Absolutely.
So that they feel, and as you said, know what the do's and don'ts are, and that there should be no secret. So they come immediately.
I'll give you an example. It's not a big example.
Well, it's not me, but you're giving
the listeners an example. It's not a big example, but it just goes, I am all for, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, and I speak about it, and I'm all for educating children when it comes to all aspects, because we are no longer living in a society where there is a fine line defining what information a child receives from what an adult receives. Social media and technology has completely changed that. It has removed the line almost completely. So in most cases, what a child is exposed to, an adult is exposed to it as well in terms of information. So I take time to sit with my children and discuss certain things with them so that they are aware, boy as well as girl, because I mean, we speak a lot about females being sexually abused, but it happens to boys as well, right?
And the boys should know very early that being an abuser is not a good thing. So we need to train them that way.
My daughter she's only 12 years old, but if you look at her, she looks like she's 15, 16 going up there, right? And she said one day she was on the terminus and she was waiting for a bus, and there was this bus passing in front of her on the terminus, and the conductor was sitting on the bus, an older guy. And she said the conductor is there and he's selling kisses for her and so on. Now, she immediately came home and she said this to me so that we could have a conversation about it, so that we can say to each other, okay, how did that make you feel? What did you do in response? You know that this is not okay. And in the event that it happens again, these are the things that you can say, or this is where you go to report it. And these kind of conversations are very important, because it wasn't a physical interaction, but it had sexual connotations. And that is where it starts. The winking of the eye, the rub on the shoulder, the little secret in the air. And it happens, Mr. Paul. You're looking at me. You're looking at me.
I'm learning. I'm in class today.
No, but these are the things that happen. These are the things that that you know, when the person goes to you and says, you know what, I want to show you something, you know, but you know, there's a little secret between the two of us. These kind of language, it needs to be taught to our children so that they know how to figure these red flags out. They know how to identify these aggressors before they become aggressive, you know? So we have to start having these conversations, and that's why it's so important.
Friends, the topic is getting interesting. We want to hear what you have to say. Please, the lines are open now. You can give us a call. It's 440-7377. If you're calling from the diaspora, please know that you can call us and reach us on 347-329-3101. Give us a call. Let you have your say. You can also message us on WhatsApp, 440-7377. And of course, there are many people on the live already sending in their own thoughts and their own views. Absolutely. We like to hear from you. Ms. Duncan is very, very, very knowledgeable in that area. She seems so from the way she has expounded on the topic this morning. But we'd like to hear from you. What's your feeling? Do you believe that the issue of more explicit sex education should start at school, should start at an earlier age? Do you believe that some of the parents, because there are a lot of young mothers, there are some people, you know, there are mothers as young as 12 years old, 12 and 13 years old. These are people who have not even finished getting the full round of education. And I'm not talking academics now, I'm talking even some of the social skills and, you know, understanding. So they themselves have little or nothing to pass on to their children. And many of them, after they have that first child, they believe it is now the end of the learning cycle for them, that the learning curve have come to an end, and they must only concentrate on how do they get by with their children. And it becomes difficult for a lot of them, because sometimes the male figure don't stick around, don't give any assistance, you know, they can't find, so they become what we normally refer to as single mothers. So all the concentration is how do they survive along with that child, or sometimes a second one which comes very quickly after. And so they make no time for further education of themselves and to adopt the right principles of parenting and to be able to train and develop their children. Because even how we speak to our children sometimes, we always quarrel. We warn them about this and warn them, well, you go get it, you're going out there, and you're this and you're that. And we have not taken the time to sit them down and explain to them, you know, step by step, what is acceptable and what is not, as you have been saying this morning. So we want to hear from you. I think you have a few people who have something on the line. You can share and people can call. Let me just repeat the numbers again for those who have not heard it. It's 440-7377 if you're calling locally, and you can also use that said number to send in WhatsApp message, 440-7377. From the diaspora, it's 347-329-3101. Let's deal with that scourge that is in our society.
Absolutely. Someone on the live is saying, well, very interesting idea, but the people who molest children are mentally ill and sick. I totally agree with Ms. Duncan's comments. Someone else is saying, sooner or later, the rate in which the sexual abuse is going on, there will be young mothers as early as 5 years to shame these predators. So far, the world's youngest is still 5 years old. Young mothers and younger grandparents too. And that is true. There are a lot of young mothers, a lot of young grandparents, so one cannot lean on the other. And you know, Mr. Bola, so oftentimes we are asking for stiffer penalties. But in asking for stiffer penalties, we are hoping that the aggressors get their just due. And to be honest, I am for stiffer penalties, but before I even consider stiffer penalties, I want to know what we can do to prevent. I am for preventative measures. Honestly, over stiffer penalties, I am for preventative measures. The stiffer penalties must be for those who slip through the cracks, for those who go undetected. But it must never be a comfortable area for individuals to feel that, okay, well, if this person do this crime, they're going to serve this amount of time, or this is going to happen to them. We should be thinking along the lines of, I do not want my child to have to go through that experience at all. I don't want any child at all to have to go through that experience. So what can we do as a society to ensure that it never gets to the point where the stiffer penalties even have to be utilized? And that is where the conversation needs to start. And it needs to start at a community level. It needs to start where leaders in our communities, women in our society who hold leadership positions, and I'm not just speaking government. I'm speaking about leaders in the church, leaders in community groups, leaders in our schools. Make it so that it is. So that people can feel comfortable coming to them. So that a child who doesn't feel comfortable going to their mother can come to you and say, listen, Mommy, this has been happening to me. Miss, this has been happening to you. You know, when I was growing up, we had what we call a church mother. And I'd never forget that. It was a lady in my community who is a nurse, Mrs. Martin, Michelle Martin. She's the sister-in-law to the Commissioner of Police. And she was a church mother. And I'll tell you this, we felt so comfortable with her. She was like a second mother to us. And she would speak to us. She would give us advice. She would lead us along the right path. And I feel like we are missing. Listen, children basically don't even go to church anymore. You don't find children in church as you used to.
Children are not supposed to go to church.
Well, parents don't carry children to church anymore. They're supposed to be brought
to church by the parents.
Right. And we don't have these kind of strong community groups anymore for children, where a child can feel comfortable with a leader in their society to go to them when they have problems at home and say to them, listen, this is what I've been experiencing. I need your help. You know? It is a really sad thing for our children, our young people, to feel helpless in their own society. They're helpless at home. They're helpless when they go to school. They're helpless when they go to church. There's nobody that they feel that they can turn to. Now, this also opens up a door and an avenue for these predators to infiltrate. Because
when you pick up on that early, because I was about to say to you when you were complete. That sometimes the comfort that you put into some of these leaders and some of these people, they have betrayed it.
Yes.
We have had, a lot of examples of people that you look up to in society being some of the greatest predators that you have.
Yeah.
I mean, look within the church. It's no secret. Within the Catholic Church in particular.
Yeah.
How many young boys have gotten molested for centuries?
Yeah.
Yeah. But people trust the priests and the leaders of the church. And I chose the Catholic Church because it is public. But there are several other churches. It happens within the Adventist religion, within the Pentecostal pastors and leaders and what you call them, laymen and what have you. People trust them. Marriages have been destroyed as a result. They pretend that they're counseling couples so that they can have a better life, and then the next thing you know, there's some infidelity.
Yep.
That is taking place because of the trust and confidence that was laid in that lay person, that minister, that pastor, that whoever it is. So our society has been shaken to the core.
Yes.
By a lot of us who are supposed to operate and behave in a particular manner and have not lived up to such expectations. And so now we find that our young children, impressionable age, pretty, I mean, it's, for me, I just cannot bring myself to that point to see and to really understand. 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 3-year-old children, what?
But worse than that, months old. There are instances of
this
children
have to be sickening.
Months old.
Sickening.
It is sickening. It is.
And we need to look at the issue as it is and not skirt over it, not pretend that it's not happening, but speak out on it. And more people must speak out on it more often. And we must call out those who we know,
of course,
are predators.
Of course.
And
I think that is
some of them may just need help.
That is what the bill seeks to do. It seeks to sensitize the public on who these predators are,
that is the known ones.
That are the known ones, right? But we still have a problem. And maybe the modality that we are using to perform these duties of counseling and being support for our children needs to change. Maybe gone are the days when a child can sit with their pastor or their counselor alone. Maybe we need to start setting up councils for that, where there are more than one people to address a situation like that, where if I come to you and I say to you, listen, I'm having a problem, that you can say to me, okay, well, you and I and whoever else will sit and discuss what we can do to resolve this issue. Maybe that needs to happen. Maybe it's no longer a one-man job, you know? So we have to start looking at ways in which we can start advancing the cause to prevent these things from happening to begin with. Someone is saying here, don't put your trust in any man's flesh and blood, could be very deceitful. That is true. The Bible speaks about that as well.
But there are some that you can trust.
That you can.
There are some people that have done tremendously good things.
Yes.
You know, in very difficult and sticky situations. They have been able to allow good sense of judgment and value for humanity to prevail over the weakness of the flesh. So while that statement is very true, there are people who are still capable of wrestling with the desires of the flesh and the desires of the heart and do good things. So we have to applaud them and hope that we can find many more men and women that are cut of the same cloth or a similar cloth so that they can do good for our people and our society.
Absolutely. Someone else is saying, remember, this started in the days of slavery. Mothers had to prepare their young daughters for the slave masters. And the RC Children is the leading source of the house slaves.
Well, that was then. Slavery has been, abolished hundreds of years ago.
The practice of slavery has been abolished.
Most of us, our mind, however, are still much enslaved.
So much. Yes.
That's why Bob Marley said,
so
emancipate yourself from mental slavery. Most of us mentally, we are still enslaved.
Yes.
And we need to rise above that. And we need to see ourselves as important people who have value and who have good contributions that we can make to society. And we need to instill those same kind of principles in our children, and to not have themselves shot, that they have no feeling that they are less than other people, because sometimes these complexes, inferior complexes, are part of the reason sometimes that cause some of our children to allow certain things to happen to them and not report, because they were made to feel that they are less than, and that has to happen to you because you are not cut of the cloth that allows you to thrive and to be good and to be at the top of the ladder and to rank with the very best. So you stay down at that level and allow everyone else to trample upon you, because that's what you were made for. The way in which we speak to and treat and tell, it happens in the home, it happens in the society, it happens in school, other institutions, workplaces, some people feeling that they are inferior. They actually believe that they are inferior. They actually think that the treatment that is meted out to them is what they deserve, because they are not of a higher calling. Yes? Right. So we have to get above and over all of these things. We have to, as a society, seek to understand what are the tribulations some of our people are going through. And a lot of it sometimes is mental, not necessarily physical or financial. Yes, there are those who have financial issues. There are those who have physical issues, disabilities, pain, chronic illness. But there are also those that have that mental inability to see themselves as important, to see themselves as being able to thrive and to be number one and to rank with the very best and to live like the best. So they hold themselves back, and as a result allow other people to get into their space and spin them around and move them around as though they're nobody, and they won't report, they won't tell, because they have been convinced to believe that that is their lot in life. And so we have a lot to do, not just as a government, not just as family. But there was one time when that was the role or part of the role of our churches and civil society and the groups that we had, helping people to build the moral and the character and to see themselves as influencers, as believers, as people who can do better.
And Mr. Bola, and this is why sometimes I have an issue with civil society and unions and in a lesser extent church groups, because I feel like as a people they're failing us. I say that because, and political organizations too, let me not forget that. Now, if it is a matter of politics, a matter where they can insert themselves to provide some political influence, you hear them. They're loud. They're present. They're there. When it is matters such as this, matters that doesn't give them any political leverage, matters that cannot attach color, and by color I mean political color, you don't hear them. They're silent. The crickets are louder than they are. In most cases, you'd see some of them put out a generic statement, send it to the media, saying that they condemn, then nothing else. And even when they do that, they find some way to say it's government's fault, or to say that government isn't doing enough to punish. But we don't need their statement after the fact. What we need is action before, to prevent them from even having to make a statement after the fact. We need them to be more involved in the morals of what this country stands for, in the instilling of the values that we believe so heavily in. Every time you turn on the TV, Mr. Bola, it is something political. It is some fire against some administration. Every time you listen to the news and you hear something bad, there's always some tie into some political something. And it is very disturbing, because while we as adults are fighting this political fight, our children are suffering. While we continue to feel the need to point fingers at any one person or any one administration, we are failing our children by not, as a community, as a state, and as a society, putting measures in place to protect our children. But then after something happens, we are quick to say, this is the reason why our policymakers have failed us. They have not failed us. We have failed ourselves and our children by inserting politics into so many things that we can no longer see reason without it. And it is very disturbing. And that is why I often say that I am so disappointed at times in civil societies and in church groups and in unions and in community leaders, because they are so ever silent when it is necessary for them to be loud, and loudest when it is necessary for them to be silent.
Or maybe they're living in an opposite world. Because if they're doing everything the opposite way, they're probably living in an opposite world. Maybe, and it is from opposite you get opposition. So that's why they are opposition.
Maybe.
Because they do it opposite.
Maybe. But it is very disturbing. And it is time for these things to change, because our children are suffering. They are suffering in so many ways for our actions. And we fail to see it. We take solace in the fact that because certain experiences have happened, it gives us political expediency. It gives us a right to now say that this administration isn't doing enough in this aspect, so they need to change, so we could bring in another administration who would probably just do the exact same thing that we are accusing this administration of doing. Or do nothing at all, while we sit there and our children continue to be affected. And the situation just festers and gets worse and gets worse, and we still feel the need to jump up in partisan politics. Now, imagine this. Here we are, where there was a discussion recently about the cancellation of the carnival holidays. And I listened, Mr. Bola, and I read and I watched in total shock and disappointment as some of who we call leaders in society are saying, oh, well, if they cancel carnival, we're losing our culture and we are losing who we are as a people, and carnival is more than just jab, jab and pretty mass. And I shook my head in disappointment, because they could not be further from the truth. We have already lost our culture. Let we start there. Because had we known what our culture was about, we would be celebrating our emancipation and not studying about the 2 days holiday that we just get to jump up and play jab and pretty mass. We would be celebrating the fact that we are supposed to be free from slavery. We are probably free from the act of.
Well, the shackles and chains are no longer on our wrists and ankles. But mentally, many of us are still very much enslaved.
Still very much enslaved. But further from that, Mr. Bola, the reason we make a noise about the 2 days is for what? Not to go and jump up, jab, and play pretty mass?
I don't know you.
We are upset about the 2 days because that is what the 2 days entails. There are many other ways for us to celebrate our culture without having to jump up, jab, and play pretty mass. Now, I'm not saying that is not, because I indulge as well. I enjoy it as well. But that is not our culture. It is not who we are. If we know our history, then we would know that the slaves celebrated on Emancipation Day. They took to the streets and they jumped and they pranced and they enjoyed themselves. Emancipation Day. That is why we have it. So, Carnival and siesta and these things, where did they come from? Not the French and the Spanish?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I often sit and I listen and I wonder, everything has to be in opposition of what government says or what an administration says. We are never willing to just sit and think about something for a moment. We are not thinking about the reason why we have this cancellation. We are not thinking about the long-term effects of if we were to slip up for any reason as a result of hosting carnival activities. But yet, in rebellion of this, we see parents and children taking to the streets and jumping in carnival-like activities. Where are these kind of rebellious activities when these nasty men interfere with children?
Well, we helping to create it. We are the creators of some of those creatures who do those things. Because as we spoke before, the activities we allow our children to go to, the way in which they dress to go to it. Because think about it. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have carnival. I'm not saying that there should not be a display of some aspects of our culture. But in so doing, we don't have to be lewd and in the nude. We can do it and still appear to be decent in the way we dressed and the way in which we act.
Yeah. We have a call on the line. Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning, Miss Duncan, and good morning to Mr. Bola.
Good morning, Miss Cammy.
And I'm listening you all from the time you come on.
Thank you.
Mr. Bola and Miss Duncan. It's not everybody that don't want to support it having no carnival.
Yes.
We have a lot of us that understand the reason why they cancel the carnival.
Right.
And then we have some that don't care and they want it. I understand the reason why, because if they're going to have carnival and the borders open, a lot of people come in Grenada.
Yes.
And then we might get the virus. I understand that. There is some ignorant people that don't understand that. And then if they do that and they get sick, they start to blame. You know, they're blaming kids, me telling you.
Yes.
Like the first thing they say, they drop in and kick. You know, for that man. Anyhow, and next thing, Miss Duncan and Mr. Buddha, we as parents have to be blamed. We have to take the rap. We have to take the whipping for what happened to the children.
Yeah.
Because some of us as parents will watch your children when they do something wrong and say you look good. But you look good, girl, you look good. You don't come like nothing good. And then we try and grow with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You understand? So, the things begin at home. You as a mother and you as a father, you send your daughter to school. You see your daughter or your son come back with a big phone. Or they come back with an hygiene. Something that you didn't buy for them. You don't asking them where they get it. None of my children could not have come home with something out of the them, you know.
Yeah.
I remember my daughter went to school and she came home with something and I sent her back with it.
Yeah.
And I caught you things.
Yes, you don't belong to her and don't take things from people like that. Yes.
And Saturday gone, I saw a little girl on the terminal here around 7:30. She didn't have no clothes. When I said no clothes on her. And I was wondering if she mother or she father, see when she leave home. She had a little piece of pants. The 2 pairs of her butt was outside.
Yes.
And she asked me if I have a problem when I watch her. Because no boss man didn't want to pick her up. And I said, yes, I have a problem. I said, the problem I have is I want to look your mom and your dad didn't see when you leave home.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So a lot of things that is happening is because of we as parents allow it. Mothers don't dress their little girl with nice little dress, no, with a little bow, and all they put on is tight. They expose the children to Jowdy.
Yes.
And I know all of them, they hear me speaking. What does do that to man? But I see that every day.
Yeah.
Every day.
Yep.
And next thing with men that troubling children and women too. When a child come and they say, Mom, so and so touch me. I don't want to hear nothing. They don't want to hear. And some of them know that the stepfather or the uncle or some friend troubling the child because the man giving them something.
Yeah.
And they accepting it.
Yeah.
It's so sad. And there is nothing they could do. They could make all the law in Grenada. Because when a man trouble a child, 3 years and 4 years, the people in the courthouse ask for bail. And they give them bail. And they are wrong. They are wrong in the society. They give them bail for raping children. I remember 3 years ago by St. Patrick, a young man interfered with a child, and that little girl filed for life, and he didn't get much jail. If they hold you with a little marijuana, you going up there and spend a 2 years.
Yeah.
So, a lot of laws have to change. Miss Duncan, they're giving the men that raping little children and women that doing the wrong things with little girls and spoiling them. Nothing happening. It's only when a man is affair with a little doctor, where all the NGOs and them talk for 2 days.
Yep.
2 days they're talking for. Look at the little girl that they killed by Grand Day.
Yes.
Students, everybody jump up.
Yep.
Because they want to be on GBN and on MTV. Right? And not again, the man they in jail. We have to work on 9 them of day.
Yeah.
Why you giving men that troubling children bed? Why? That's what I want to ask me. The people are giving them bed and the lawyers are pleading for them to get this. And they don't even man, they hold with one split of ganja or a little piece of ganja and have hung. And they're sending them up there. I'm not saying that they shouldn't arrest them if they hold them with marijuana. But they will be more lenient with the men that trouble children. And Demi, we're talking about the churches. Even in the churches, abuse going on with children. Even in the churches, let them marry me that it's happening. It's happening. And when people speak, they look at you. In the churches, so they must put something in place. But when a man interferes with a child, give him the full penalty. If it's my child that interferes with somebody, this little trend, I have no remote over my child. I don't speak to my trend. I say, you want woman? Look for big woman.
Yeah.
Look for big woman, leave trend alone. You understand? So, that is what I have to say this morning.
Yes.
And before I leave, I want to send a strong message for the people in the Bushes area. I feel so bad. You all is ungrateful people. I have no apology for that. That Prime Minister of ours, he don't perfect. I don't perfect, you don't perfect, Mr. Bola. We will make mistakes.
Yes.
But that man do so much for people in that village. And they had a belly to say he don't do nothing. He don't do nothing for them. Mr. Bola, if you take a ride up in Musheyu,
yes,
and you go on the hill, and you see the kind of apartment,
yes,
and the kind of nice house,
them
people up there have.
Yeah.
When I go and live up there, in a road was a truck.
Yes.
Now we have wrongs about. We have everything. It's sad. You know the hand, gotta be careful.
Yes.
And the man that passing and give money. You have a man that giving them money.
Yes.
He a man. I don't call him in there because I don't have money going to sue me. He passing wrong. And give somebody scam people.
You give them money
to scare kind of thing. And say the Prime Minister doesn't come in the village. He don't do nothing for them. He give everybody money go done.
I want that money. I wish I could get the money.
All people say, all motel never die. If you have a motel, treat you like,
Yeah.
and you cut it down, it still does spring up.
Spring up, yes.
And you get that money, take the money, but remember, the Prime Minister been there for you for years,
Yes.
helping you out.
Yes.
And he cannot break the law to do things that he's not supposed to do.
Yeah.
They vex, some of them vex. Because with the incident with the man that had the wrong factory and them,
Yeah.
with the man land, the Prime Minister can break the law. If you really like to get locked up too.
Yeah, of
Yep.
course.
And you must have understanding. The man is a human being.
Yes.
I am so mad at Mr. Beck.
Don't get
that
too
I
mad.
don't want nothing to do with the people in that village. Trust me, I live in there.
Don't get too mad. That's where you live, yes.
Mr. Bola, you cannot be ungrateful to people.
You shouldn't at
You
all.
just stand up, you passing, and I give you a glass of water. Remember that glass of water I give him because he could have dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
We must be grateful.
Yes. All
None
the
of
time.
us perfect. None. Have a blessed day.
You
Yes,
take
Mama.
care and thank you very much for your contribution, Miss Kami. She had a lot to say,
A
but
lot to say.
very important what she said, you know, and sometimes people like that who have had wealth of experience, they've been around, they've done a lot, they've seen a lot. We need to give them their say and listen to them.
Absolutely. We have another caller on the line. Hello, good morning.
Morning, my dear heart.
Good morning, Miss Jacob. How are you?
Well, a day, one more day for me day.
For your birthday?
Oh, okay. Well, in advance for tomorrow.
Bola.
Saturday's
How are
your
you?
birthday.
Well, Well, a day, boy, a day. That topic I raised,
Yeah.
that topic bring me right back when I was 11 years.
Mm.
It have a man and a woman. Husband and wife, eh?
Yes.
The husband, the man use his first child. He make a child with his child, eh? You understand me? And then he turn back and make a child with the grandchild.
Yeah.
With grand. How boy. And this thing happening long.
Very long.
Long. Well, I tell you, 11 years I had, you know.
Okay.
And I noticed that.
Okay.
11 years I had. So, but this thing went long, my dear darling, and this you say about church. You hit the nail on the head, Brother Bula.
Yes.
You hit the nail on the head. Because some of those churches go easy. Especially, I don't care who hear me. I don't call no name.
Yes, don't call no name.
Warrant. Especially those altar servers. Careful. This thing went in long.
Yeah.
Well, now we was.
Yes, well, it's reported much more now. We're getting to know more of it. A long time ago, it was more hidden, but now...
Hidden, but...
No, it's more exposed. Yeah.
Come out in the open.
Yes.
And long ago, with the thieving again, well, I don't know what Uncle Gary go and take out the cat in the prison for. He should have leave it there.
Yeah.
Long ago, you used to have thief. But when you thief, according to how much year, how much, they don't give you plenty years. If it's 6 months, every day, you get 2 lash of cat in the baba.
Yes.
And I don't know what he go and take out the cat in. He say, well, you must not do that. You take up those people already, and you know long ago, they used to scald the saltfish, roast the potato, and put it, give them. That is that. And long ago, people is still angels than what the beast and them already know.
Yeah.
Uncle Gary said, no, that's not the way to do. People that do Christian that no, don't do that. They do something wrong, it's true. Feed them. Don't do them that. Papa, when he going out, he take the cat and he go with it. Somebody say, when he goes with the cat should not jump on his back.
Either get some cat or 9 or 10 or 11, whatever it was.
You know?
Yes.
He had a guy by living we are staying down here. And he do something. I tell you, get 3 lash of cat when he coming out. He run from St. David and he pass the gap. Go all down West Alpine.
Cat make him run.
The cat hot on the back. Oh God. Yes, that's I wonder. I wonder. And think no, they must bring the prison. They should bring Trinidad prison over here.
Prison? They bad in Trinidad, then the prison up there bad? The prison in Trinidad bad?
The prison in Trinidad bad. The prison here is hotel.
Okay.
Going in a hotel.
But me check up, you never go in prison, you know. You never go in prison, oh,
I
you know?
never go in prison, but here.
You here? All right.
He had a guy by me.
Yes.
But he dead now. Every time November reach, he making sure
You do something to go wrong?
spend Christmas outside. Going up in the hotel, he also say, they better to spend Christmas than outside.
You sure we getting pork and beef? And ham too?
And what they do, if they don't want something, they protesting about it.
Huh.
Yes, if they don't want the food, what?
So they in charge?
Protesting about it. I went in Jamaica too.
Yes.
I went in Jamaica. So, when I said no, I said, Madam, I go down there, I see some prisoners, I see some people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know was prisoners. They pants below the bottom. They dress. They don't have the dress kind of a thing, those ladies. We say, Madam, what they doing there? What that for? She say, darling, the food. They don't like the food
They don't like the food they getting? They don't like the food they getting?
No, they don't like the food they getting, so they come out and protest about it. That's why you see some of those boys and them here. They don't know where this style come out. This style come out in the prison.
Okay.
To put in the pants below the bottom. That is something too? No. And yeah, some my woman and them, they wearing the clothes shot. Long ago you couldn't do that.
Yes.
Long ago you're wearing your clothes. Especially school children clothes had to go right down on their shoes. But no, I especially, well, I'm not afraid to say it. The clothes supposed to wear their clothes. The clothes are supposed to shut. Or supposed to be long. Yes.
Okay. Well, Ms. Jacob, thank you so much.
And Sister Duncan, you had to make something nice for me tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I hear your constituency office having luncheon, so I know you're getting lunch for sure.
They didn't tell me that.
Hey.
They want...
They all time keeping me.
No, they want to surprise you.
It was just that.
They want
But
to
I'm glad that you
surprise
tell me. So there's no surprises there.
you. Oh, God. Duncan go and let the cat out of the bag. She want to play uncle. Uncle take the cat and go. Why you let the cat out of the bag for, Duncan?
So
I'm glad she let it out of the bag because the cat might have scratched up. And it's a good thing she let it out.
Exactly.
Because the cat go scratch up. And I don't want the cat to scratch up.
All right.
You understand?
all right. Well, Ms. Jacob, you have a wonderful day.
And you have a wonderful day,
And
brother.
I know we'll speak again tomorrow before your
thank
birthday.
you.
God spare our life.
All
Yes.
right.
So you have a wonderful and a blessed day.
You too.
Okay, sweetheart.
Take best care now.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Bola, I wanted us to talk a little bit about vaccination, but you know what? Let's leave that for another day. You know, we don't want to take away from the conversation that's happening now. But before I do any of that, let me, I learned something very interesting yesterday. You know, when we often talk about vaccination, we talk about, how come they didn't find a vaccine for cancer? Or how is it that they have not found a cure for AIDS?
Yeah.
But what I've recently learned...
They didn't have a cure for AIDS. They had something that would prolong your life. I don't know.
Yeah, they have the drugs, the retroviral.
Yes.
But no, right now, actually, scientists from Oxford, they have started a clinical trial of an HIV vaccine. Right? And in the trial, they have recruited, I think, 13 healthy HIV negative adults.
Yes.
And those who are considered not to be at high risk. So it's 13 of them. I believe that's the number. and they don't have HIV, they don't have AIDS, they are not considered to be of high risk, and they have given them the vaccine. Now they're going to receive, one vaccine, and then they're going to receive a booster shot 4 weeks after that. And they said that the vaccine is targeted to prevent the HIV in the negative individual or in negative people, but also to cure HIV in persons who have it.
Okay.
So I mean that is a massive stride in medicine, and it will definitely deal with that situation that has been plaguing us for so long, so many years.
Many years,
decades.
But it takes years of research. As opposed to the COVID vaccine,
they didn't have as much money pumped into
it, but also research on COVID.
On COVID had started.
A long time ago. Not COVID-19, but the COVID virus has been around for a very, very long time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I will follow this closely because I think it's an amazing, amazing stride. I think the last number that was given, I think there are 36 or 39 million people worldwide living with HIV. 1.7 million of those people are children living with HIV or AIDS. So that is going to be an incredible milestone in medicine and an incredible milestone for humanity as well. I just felt like we needed to just throw that out there. We'll discuss on it a little bit more, but we need to throw it out there. But Mr. Bola, as time is winding down, I just feel like we need to get more serious about some of the ills that are happening in our society. And we need to be able to separate ourselves from politics. We need to be able to make contributions to our society that are non-political. You know, and as I said that yesterday, I read something and I was conflicted as to whether I should bring it up this morning or not. And it just gives us an example of how we don't know how to separate our politics from our everyday life. The Minister of Education, Minister in St. Andrew Southeast? Southeast it is? St. Andrew Southeast?
St. Andrew Southeast.
Right. St. Andrew Southeast.
Okay. I didn't realize you was asking me.
Yes. Usually, she does this this program. I'm not sure if you did it when you were in office, but I know there are a few representatives who do it, where in their constituency, the child or the individual or children who place, I think, the top 3 highest scores or whatever within the constituency, she would award them a prize as the parliamentary representative. Now, I saw a letter being circulated on social media, a letter that was given to, I am assuming, the person who placed third, because from what I understand, the third place prize is $100. Now, from what I understand, that prize is redeemable through the school or through the place that you'd like to make the purchase. I think, and you've spoken about this before, not giving people money in hand because it often doesn't get utilized for the purpose it needs to be utilized for. So they would arrange with the school. Sometimes.
Yes.
So they would arrange for pickup at the school of whatever it is that you have to get, or they would arrange for you to meet with the bookstore or whatever it is. Now, in order for that to be done, they made arrangements for the winner to contact the parliamentary office.
Yes.
Because the gift is being provided by the representative. Somebody, I don't call it name, decided that it was a wonderful thing to wake up yesterday morning and criticize the parliamentary representative for that approach.
Mm-hmm.
Saying that, oh, well, they shouldn't have to call the office. They shouldn't make the thing political. Now, mind you, they took away from the entire fact that it was a good deed that was being done. Let's start there. It was a good deed that was being done. But further from that is the parliamentary representative. If the parliamentary representative wants to give a gift and she decides that this is the way in which she wants to give the gift, how can you find issue with that?
But listen, let me just stop you right there, Ms. Duncan. The person who made that point is simply either mischievous or not aware that the parliamentary representative office is a public office.
It is a public office.
The parliamentary representative office in every single constituency is being paid for by government.
Yes.
It's just as if you go to the Ministry of Health or the Ministry of Education or you go to the hospital. They are public buildings. So what is the politics in it?
Yeah.
It is not a political building. You know. It is not a building owned, paid for, rented by the party. It's by government. So the minister in the execution of her duties
as parliamentary
representative can do any public business in the parliamentary office.
Absolutely.
It is a public office.
Yeah.
So you are so wrong, whoever you are, to think, why should they go there? It is politics. You, people like you and others,
is why we have this problem.
That makes those offices political. Because I do know, and we say to our followers and supporters all the time, that you cannot prevent anyone from coming to the office.
That is true.
You cannot label people and say, well, this one is a NDC, that one is a GLP. It is a public office where they ought to go, where they have a right to go as a citizen of the state to do any business with the minister or on behalf of the minister or parliamentary rep.
And I said that to say, Mr. Bola, these are the reasons why we have this kind of problem in our country, where individuals cannot separate the politics from matters that affect the state, where they cannot see that what they are doing is hurting more than helping individuals. Because when you do things like that, let's say, for example, there is a parent who really needs some assistance, who feels like they need to go to their parliamentary representative, they should not be conflicted by which party they support, because it is a public office.
Yes.
But when these individuals go out there and make them feel as if you cannot, because I telling you as a political operative that it is a political office, then they are sitting there suffering, cussing and quarreling with government because they have been wrongfully informed or misled. You know? In the same way, we need to find ways, and this is taking us back to, and as we're closing, this issue of child abuse and child molestation and so on. I have heard people advocating for policymakers to provide more stringent laws, to enact a sexual offenders registry. I've heard for people calling on policymakers to give stiffer penalties. What I haven't heard is these same individuals calling on our societies to create stronger bonds so that our children have more support, to create more avenues for these things to be dealt with so they are prevented instead of penalized, for us to have more unity as a people where we can teach about the morals and values that we are so invested in, where we as a people can be more vigilant so that we identify these predators in our communities and in our societies so that they do not pose harm to our children. That is what I don't hear enough of, and that is what I want to hear more of. So yes, I'm all for stiffer penalties and more laws and for policymakers to put things in place for these things to become a reality. I am all for that. But what I'm also for, and what I'm more for, is for us as a people to start standing up against these things, to be more vocal about these things than we are about partisan politics, to be more vocal about these things, to be more vocal about the preventative measures and what we can do and contribute as a society to prevent our children from hurting in these kinds of ways, than we are for blaming a government for not putting more policies in place to penalize somebody after the hurt has already happened. These are the things that I want to see more of.
Well, Ms. Duncan, thank you for saying today was your day. You did well. Congratulations publicly. And of course, as we continue to move on, it is our hope that more and more will be done, more will be said, and not just only about the issue of child molestation, which is really a very hurting, very large issue that all of us needs to be concerned about. But there are so many more things in our society that we should be concerned about, that we should do something about, that we should be a part of in a very positive way. And I do hope that we have just whet your appetite as a public today to give you the encouragement, the impetus, as they say, to want to do more, discuss more, and to make sure that at the end of the day, all of us gets an opportunity to live a better life in this country. It was a good Thursday program, in my opinion. I hope that you have learned something, you have heard something that you didn't hear before, or by hearing something, you have made up your mind to do something that you didn't do before, something good and something positive. As we oftentimes say, we've come to the end of our program, and we do hope that you will continue to follow the protocols. Be disciplined, be respectable, but also be responsible with the things you do, the things you say, the places you go, and the actions that you take.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.
All right, guys, we've come to the end of our program for today. And as we say here every day, in whatever you do and whatever you say, be safe, be secure. We always want to be talking with you, but we do not ever want to be talking about you. So please do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report. It has been a pleasure, guys.
Members of the lower house supports the cancellation of Carnival 2021. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Wednesday, July 7th, 2021, I am Chrisanne Mitchell. Members of the House of Representatives voted Wednesday to remove August 9 and 10, 2021 as bank holidays due to the cancellation of Spice Mass 2021. Presenting the COVID-19 cancellation of Carnival August Celebration Bill 2021, Legal Affairs Minister Honorable Kindra Mathurin-Stewart said the bill seeks to promote the government's mandate to manage the virus effectively. Honorable Mathurin-Stewart, who is also the Minister for Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs and Local Government, said the cancellation of Carnival 2021 is in the best interest of the population. Making reference to neighboring islands which are still grappling with the effects of the virus, Minister Stewart highlighted the significance of cancelling all carnival activities, which traditionally involves large gatherings and in the current pandemic will create the ideal environment for the spread of the COVID-19. The minister, a known masquerader, said the government's decision to pass the Carnival cancellation bill is in no way misguided.
Mr. Speaker, I love my carnival. I love my mass. I love my fancy mass. And of course in Carriacou, carnival time, you feel extra happy. That revelry, that spirit of enjoyment, that gladness seems to take over all of us. And so I do miss it, as most persons in our society do. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we have a serious threat to our public health, to our public safety. And we as a government are quite cognizant that the well-being and welfare of our citizens must always come first. Mr. Speaker, I believe that if we were to say cancel carnival and still have the bank holidays, what we'll find happening is in fact what we don't want to happen, which is carnival celebrations. And we have seen it, Mr. Speaker. And so we have to ensure that as far as possible, we continue to protect our country and our people.
The bill received support from several parliamentarians, including Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell, Minister for Education, Human Resource Development, Religious Affairs and Information, Honorable Emmeline Pear, Opposition Leader Honorable Tobias Clement, and Parliamentary Representative for St. Patrick West, Honorable Anthony Boson. They agreed that the cancellation of carnival and carnival-like activities will be in the best interest of the country and its people as the pandemic rages on. The onus, they say, is on every Grenadian to respect the sacrifices made thus far in keeping the pandemic at bay and preserving lives and livelihoods.
I don't agree that the decision of postponement of carnival and similarly also removal of the holiday is an unpopular act. There is a perception, Mr. Speaker, I think we've gone very far, that a few people write on social media, that becomes the voice of the people of the country. That's what happening now, 10 or 15 people or 20 people write on social media becomes the voice of the people. The mass of the people do not write anything on social media. So the postponing of carnival, yes, maybe an unhappy thing. For me, I don't enjoy it because I like carnival. But I know that health is most important and life is more important. So I accept it.
So we have done extremely well, Mr. Speaker. I commend everyone who has been leading this fight, the sacrifices of nurses and doctors. I've seen in some countries nurses and doctors putting up placards, please, I can't sleep, I can't go home, I can't see my family. Please help me by protecting yourself. And I believe that's what we're saying, Mr. Speaker. Help Grenada by taking responsibility to protect yourself. And so when you look at some of the behavior of people, see people running through the street, water high like this, not thinking about sewage, not thinking about the health risk, a moment of pleasure. It feels good. But what is the consequence that is going to come from that feel-good moment? What are we prepared to give up, Mr. Speaker? What are we prepared to sacrifice to keep ourselves, to keep our families, to keep our country safe?
I admonish that we continue to follow the protocol in all sectors, especially when it comes to gathering and celebrations and large gatherings. So that is why I'm saying today, Mr. Speaker, that it must be all encompassing, not only carnival, but everything else that seems like carnival. So, Mr. Speaker, yes, I do support this bill. The one that we cannot put the monetary value on is life. The possibility of the loss of life. And one life lost because of COVID, Mr. Speaker, we want to much. Because we cannot put a monetary value on the lives of our people. So we have to be careful, Mr. Speaker. Having hospitalized, can our medical system support any major influx of persons with COVID at this point in time? With the limited facilities and resources that we do have? I'm saying no, we can't. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, notwithstanding the benefits which people's
And we empathize as we sympathize with those, empathize, I would say, with those who depend, who make a livelihood out of it. These people shout to them and let them understand that yes, you might be losing a livelihood, but the possibility of losing lives might be greater.
This morning, the Caribbean region and world awoke to reports of the assassination of the Haitian president, Jovenel Moïse, and the injuries sustained by his wife, First Lady Martine. The government and people of Grenada are indeed shocked by this act of violence perpetrated against a head of state, and we express our sincere condolences to his family and loved ones. For us in Grenada, we are well aware of the significant impact on a country when it loses its leader to violence, and we empathize with all concerned. It is our fervent hope that Haiti will soon experience a return to peace and stability. As a member of the Caribbean community CARICOM, a grouping to which Haiti also belongs, Grenada will continue to engage with our Caribbean neighbors to do whatever we can in bringing the resolution to the issues that confront our brothers and sisters in Haiti. We continue to hope that democracy and peace will prevail and that Haitians can embark on a period of healing and reconciliation. May God bless the people of Haiti as they confront this very challenging moment in the nation's history. During a meeting of the House of Representatives on Wednesday, members of Parliament observed a minute of silence in honor of the late Haitian president.